All right. So lately I've been thinking a lot about the origins of things like magic and divination, tarot, astrology, geomancy, numerology, all these different kinds of things. And the kind of mindset or perspective a person would need to be able to work those ideas out to such a high degree. When you really look into traditions of magic or, astrology or tarot, those sorts of things, these are not a mishmash of randomly, loosely assembled ideas. These are highly worked out systems that people have had put a whole lot of time and effort into, and they're like meticulous in the way that they've been assembled. And it makes me think about like what kind of person would be able to really work this stuff out. And it kind of almost points towards this idea that it's possible to evolve your perception or alter your perception in such a drastic way that's like almost incomprehensible to any of us in the modern age. And if you look into pretty much any culture that has any sort of mystical tradition and you try to find out like where did this all come from, almost every cultural tradition has the same a different version of the same story. They all say something to the effect of the spirits gave it to us, right? In the matter of the Kabbalah, which originated out of Judaism, if you look into what the old rabbis have to say about where did the Kabbalah come from, which is kind of the underpinning system that kind of the entire Golden Dawn system is based on, they'll tell you it was given to them by the archangel Metatron. Or if you think about the Amazon, where ayahuasca comes from, ayahuasca has become pretty popular these days. Well, the Amazon has something like over 50,000 different species of plants, I think. And ayahuasca requires a very specific ratio of these two or three different types of plants. I think it's like a plant and a vine and a bark. I don't really know for sure. I've never done it. But it's a very specific arrangement with very specific instructions on how to do it. And there was a researcher, I forget his name, it might have been Dennis or Terrence McKenna. I don't know. I can't remember. But either way, they did the math on it. And I think they said that in order to stumble upon this specific concoction, through trial and error would take like over 100,000 years. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't can't remember where I heard that, but it makes sense. 50,000 plants is a lot, and there's probably even more than that. But if you ask the people who grew up through those lineages, they'll tell you that the spirits told them where to find it. They told them where to find it, how to prepare it, how much to put in there, how long to cook it, and how to take it, and that's it. Now, it's really easy to dismiss things like a magical tradition as just a lot of people who are really dedicated to their delusions, standing from the outside. It's easy to dismiss these kinds of things as just whatever, just sweep it under the rug, doesn't matter, it's just all nonsense. But when you actually look into these things, give it an honest try, approach it as if you have no idea what you're getting into and just observe what happens. Just really give it, just really look into it. Try these different things. Instead of assuming you already know what it's supposed to do, just try it and see what happens. Follow the instructions and see what happens. And personally, I've come to find that these rituals, specifically in the Golden Dawn system, which is what you'll probably hear me talk most about, because that's the one I have the most experience with, these things work like ridiculously well. Problem is, they don't work the way that you might think or expect them to. And by the time you really understand what these things are doing, it's kind of too late to turn back. You've already kind of flipped a switch that you can't unflip. And when you really look into it, this system has really been worked out to an incredible degree. This right here is it's an old book. It's been through hell with me. Both the covers are ripped off. But this is the Golden Dawn by Israel Regardi, and this is just the textbook that goes along with the initiation course book that comes in a separate book. And there are other books you're supposed to read too. And it's not really the kind of book you read through page by page, like start to finish. It's more like a textbook. There are other things that go along with it, and you reference this, and each grade in the Golden Dawn system has you read certain chapters, and it kind of ties into other things you learn from other. So it's like a whole course. But there is a great deal of information and a lot of detail that have been put into all of this. And the people who created the Golden Dawn didn't necessarily actually create all of this. They sort of assembled a lot of different things, a lot of different practices from a lot of different cultures and kind of wove it all into one coherent system. But even that, supposedly, depending on which of the stories you believe, even the guys who started it, I think it was McGregor Mathers, and was it like Wynn Westcott? I can't remember. The history of all of it is not really my main focus. I have more immediate things I need to focus on. Um, but supposedly, a lot of this stuff came from these cipher manuscripts that they got from this, I think it was a Dutch countess who got them from someone else, who got them from someone else who I think allegedly was connected to Christian Rosencrantz, who's another person who may or may not even have existed, who was supposedly the person who kind of created the Rosicrucian order. But I guess my point is, when you really try to trace any of this kind of stuff back all the way to its origins, like the tarot, nobody really knows exactly when or where the tarot was created. They know when it was first mentioned in certain books and manuscripts, which I think was around the uh, 16th century, I believe. Again, history is really not my strong suit. I've read about this stuff before, but so I'm kind of paraphrasing, but it's somewhere around there. We look into the origins of astrology, and it's incredibly old. Still, not really sure exactly where it started. I think the earliest mentions of it probably were from one of the old Egyptian dynasties. And when you try to think about like what would have to be true about the nature of reality for these sorts of things like magic and divination to work, and then if you try to shoehorn that idea into your current belief system or this sort of Western modern belief system, it just doesn't quite work. There's all these, it just doesn't fit. And so it's easy to just kind of dismiss it, whatever, don't worry about that, it's nonsense, just don't bother me with that. But when you really give it an honest try and you really dig into this kind of stuff and experiment with it and really try to see what's going on here with an open mind, something kind of weird starts to happen inside of you where, there's something that happens when you come face to face with things that should not technically be possible, and yet they seem to be presenting you with the evidence that they are over and over again, but you can't rationally quite figure out exactly why that is. There's this weird thing that happens in the back of your mind. It's almost like how there's a lot of talk about like UFOs and UAPs and these things in the sky that are just seem to completely defy everything we think we know about physics. They move in impossible ways. They maneuver weirdly. They have no propulsion system. They make no sound when they move at these crazy high speeds. They can just seem to do all these things that don't make any sense, and yet all sorts of people are seeing them. And when you see something like that, where you have the evidence, you are witnessing something that is utterly defying your own current belief system, that causes a sort of shock, but it's such a massive shock that you don't even process it because the subconscious kind of has a defense mechanism about this or for this. It's almost like a form of trauma. It creates this reaction in you that is so massive that you literally just can't look at it all at once. So it kind of gets crammed down into the subconscious and put aside for later. And then after a little bit of time, you look back on it like, yeah, maybe I saw something. Could have been a coincidence or whatever. You just explain it away and kind of try to ignore it and not think too much about it. But this confrontation with something that seems to be indicating that everything you think you know is wrong, that's terrifying because then there's this sense of like, well, if I'm wrong about all this and there's something that I'm completely missing that is utterly defies everything I think could be possibly true, how do I make decisions? I don't know anything. How do you make any kind of decisions? You become sort of paralyzed. You go into like a state of psychic shock. It's sort of like the ground underneath your feet just suddenly turned into water and you never learned how to swim and you're just in this entirely chaotic and new world that you don't understand at all, even though it looks the same. Suddenly you don't really know anything about it. And so when you really get deep into the practice of magic or divination, if you really go far enough down this road, you become exposed to things like this slowly over time, again and again and again and again. And it's interesting how at first it's a little easier to just kind of blindly accept what's happening and just go with it. And it's all exciting and cool. Magic is real. Oh my God, there's all this stuff to learn. But there's that little voice in the back of your mind that really thinks this is all absolutely horrifying. And you slowly come to terms with this idea that there is an entire whole aspect of reality that is right here in front of us all the time, at every moment, that the rational mind just cannot grapple with, cannot deal with at all. You can see its effects and you can theorize and conceptualize and all you want, but it just can't quite put all the pieces together. So I guess where I'm going with this is I can think of a few different possibilities of what might really be going on here, how we came to understand or gain this sort of knowledge, and all of them are equally as bizarre. I mean, maybe that literally is the case. The spirits, these other higher beings that are more evolved than us in some form that we can hardly comprehend really do come and give information and interact with humans in that way. Or maybe these things are sort of characterizations. They're aspects of our own innate being that are not under the control of the conscious ego, and we just deal with them in this with this sort of almost like metaphorical or symbolic relationship of calling them spirits or angels or aliens or whatever. Um, or maybe there have been humans that have evolved their consciousness, that have stretched their perception in ways that none of us can really comprehend or imagine, to the point where they were able to work out these complex systems that just somehow seem to work, even though they seem like they probably shouldn't. Anyway, it's just something I've been thinking about lately, and for some reason, putting this kind of stuff out there where other people can see it and hear it is somewhat therapeutic for me for some reason, and I'm pretty sure everybody I know, for the most part, already thinks I'm insane and out of my mind anyways, so not much to lose there. So, anyways, check out my website and stuff. Sell readings, check out the meanings of the cards and planets and all that kind of stuff. I recently added a new section for a blog. As of right now, at the time of filming this, there's nothing there yet, but I'm building stuff up. There will be more stuff to come. Go check it out. Like and subscribe and all that stuff if you want to. And I will talk to you again soon. Take care.